What is LinkedIn? LinkedIn calls itself an online platform that connects the world's professionals. I like to think of it as a Rolodex of my contacts. I have, for the last 5 years, tried to do a really good job of every time I meet someone, if I think they're interesting or in my industry or potentially helpful to me down the road, I try to connect with them on LinkedIn. I do that because I never know what connection might be important. Something like 80% of jobs are obtained through people that you know. And I think as the internet expands, that gets bigger and bigger. And Jeff, Banny question. I'll talk to you about Banny offline. I don't know if you guys can see that. Jeff just asked me if I was joining Banny and why the Banny logo wasn't on there.
Here we go.
I'm sure it's in our future. Cam supports that concept. There are literally hundreds of people that we meet in our daily jobs and in our daily lives each year that, that contact might be useful 3 years down the road. It may not be useful now, you may not see that, but you never really know, where they might end up in the future to do that. And so I use LinkedIn as my Rolodex. It's owned by Microsoft now, so it feels like it's probably not going anywhere. And they're using it for a number of really interesting projects. Generally, it's a social media site, and I feel like it is news and op-ed for the business world. You don't see a lot of, today's breaking news there. You don't see a lot of puppies and kittens, although they do show up. But it is sort of a thought-provoking place where you can think about what's going on in the business world. When thinking about who you should connect with, I have almost 3,000 connections, and some of you have many more. Some of you probably have have a lot less. The important number is 500. On your profile, it'll either say the number of contacts that you have or 500 plus. And if you have less than 500, then it looks like you're not really participating in LinkedIn. And so you want to make sure that you get over that 500. If I see someone who only has 82 contacts or even 250 contacts, I assume that they're rarely on the platform and that my connection with them won't be valuable. So it's best to make sure that you're at least at that 500 level. And I think most of us, especially on this call, would agree that probably getting to 500 is not very hard. We're a very open industry, and we talk to and connect with a lot of people. So getting to that level should be valuable. LinkedIn has what's called first, second, and third connections. First connections are people who you have agreed to connect with. Second connections are, if you sort of think about it in like Kevin Bacon terms, they're people who you share one connection with. So everyone on this call, I would expect, would be a first connection for me, or will be after this call. But all of your friends are my second connections, unless I'm personally connected with them. Third is a little further out. You have to have 2 shared connections to get to third. And after third, it doesn't matter. It either says third or third plus. But you can see that it is fairly easy to get maybe an introduction or know who that second person is. And you may have seen them, in the industry who those second people are. Third is a little more complicated to get to. And oftentimes what the algorithm feeds you is a lot of those like big names on LinkedIn. Just like, there's influencers on Instagram and Facebook, those same companies and people exist on LinkedIn as well. There's also other ways to join the conversation. So there's groups, there's events that happen, although that's not necessarily something I'm super familiar with. Pages, they have newsletters, and then hashtags exist the same way. And so groups would be, you could create a group around a marketing concept. And I follow a couple entrepreneur and business groups. There's admins of the groups and they push out content. Different than companies often, they may, not be a formally recognized company. They may not have necessarily a revenue source, but people can share into that group, and people who follow the group can get that information. Pages, most of the time you see as company pages. And this is very similar to the concept of company pages on Facebook, except it also connects the employees. So for people who are looking for a job, this can be really interesting to say, I want to go work at Microsoft, let's say. Well, I can see my first connections who also work at Microsoft. Now, coming from Seattle, and Microsoft's a huge company, I'm sure I have a number of first connections at Microsoft. But for people in our industry, maybe they want to go work for, I see Mitch is on here, so maybe they want to go work for Prevo. Who do they know that's a first connection that they could reach out to? Those are some of the ways that you can look at those connections and the companies to understand how you can reach out and how this can further your network. Now you might be thinking like, oh, how do I connect if I'm an employee, we'll use Mitch as an example. If I'm an employee of Prevo, how do I tell LinkedIn that I am employed by them? Well, of course, that's part of your profile, and that's part of what you say your work history has been. And so you're telling LinkedIn, just like you write it on your resume, and LinkedIn connects the dots. Does anyone have any questions about this?
You're explaining it awesome.
Awesome. So it looks like we got a few more people joining the meeting. It looks like Jasmine and Wendy, thanks so much for popping in. So your profile, this is, what I really think about it is it's your online resume. And it means that you want to be putting your best foot forward. But some of the best advice that I got about my resume was that it needs to be updated frequently. And you never really think about your resume until you need it. And one of the most complicated parts of building your resume is trying to remember your successes and the specific details around the stories that you had that make you a great employee from 2-3 years ago. Even months ago is really hard. And so you can think of LinkedIn as a place where you can store and keep a lot of this information so that when you need to actually get a resume, you can build it fairly easily. And when I'm talking about that pieces, I'm talking about specifically your job experience and the companies that you work for. What are the key things that you did in those roles that would be valuable to put on a resume? You can put those on LinkedIn. Recognize that that's public information, anyone can see it. I wouldn't expect that you'd be putting anything different on your actual paper resume, but paper obviously can travel less easily than through the interwebs. I'm actually just going to pull up my profile and bring that over here. So this is my profile, and you may or may not have already seen it. You scoped me out prior to joining this, but you can see I have my profile photo here. This is an example of a good profile photo. You can see my face. I look professional. Unfortunately, it is getting to be a little older than I'd like. This photo is 6 years old at this point. So you really do want to keep your photo updated usually every 3 to 4 years. My glasses are not in this photo, and that kind of bugs me. But you don't want multiple people in your photo. You generally want it to be mostly of your face so that people can recognize you. It doesn't help to have, a photo from a really, a full body shot from far away, because then people can't necessarily recognize you very well. And you want them to be able to be like, oh yeah, I met Trisha last night at this networking event. She's awesome. I want to connect. The other thing that I do fairly poorly is this cover photo area. So you see this photo up top, it's like these weird gray boxes. What I should do is I should have a cover photo there that has my current company logo, as well as like a tag or some text about what I'm doing. My friend is a fractional CFO. Let's see if he has his up. So this is an example of a great cover photo. It has his logo. It talks about exactly what he does. He's an outsourced CFO with financial operations, and it has a little bit of interest there. So that's a great example of something very simple. This is obviously not graphically very challenging to put together. You could do this in Paint or frankly, I do a number of things in Word and then snip them off my computer with a little snipper to make them into a photo. But something like this would be great for my profile and my headline. And all of us should really have that if we're using LinkedIn to build business or connect with colleagues in the industry. Your headline is the next piece that's really important, and that's this piece right here. And for most people, their headline says, senior manager of whatever it is that they're responsible for doing. And that's not necessarily the thing that really tells them the most thing about you. When you think about your unique selling point, is your personal unique selling point that you're a senior manager of industrial operations? Probably not. If you only had one sentence to tell people about you, what is it that you would do? I save travel and transportation companies thousands of dollars a year. Well, that's pretty interesting and impressive. I kind of want to learn more about this lady named Trisha. Versus, I'm a principal technology solutions architect at the L&W team. Boring, pass. So you can think about your headline being something that can really set you apart and explain to people why they would want to connect with you, or why, if they've found your profile, they realize you're in the right place. Generally, you want it to have your unique selling proposition. Sometimes it can have your expertise and any other keywords. You do have a limited amount of space here, so I'm sort of pushing the limit with what I have. I still have a couple more words. But you connect those with what's called pipes, which are the vertical lines here. So if I wanted to say, so that's a pipe. It's right above the enter button on my keyboard. So if I wanted to say technology, and I'd say motor coach. So this, I want people who are searching in the motor coach industry to be able to find me, and I might say technology solutions. I am a developer, but it's not how I spend my days. And so that might be an easy way for me to, put some other keywords in here again. Again, these are called pipes, and they're how you would, that's the appropriate way to add to your headline. The other thing that you want to do is to make sure that your URL is not the garbage that LinkedIn assigns to you. You want to make that a unique URL. Typically, you want to use your first and last name. But this allows you to make your LinkedIn really memorable. So if I ever need to enter into a profile, what is my LinkedIn? I always know that it's linkedin.com/in and then my name. Makes it really easy. It also makes it look like you've actually done the work to be part of this organization. You can change it to whatever you wanted. But typically what shows is a whole bunch of numbers. So I'm going to pick on Jeff and see if he's updated his to show you. So Jeff has the opportunity to make his a unique URL and not have these long numbers here. Now, he does have a great photo up here of his beautiful Amaya seats. So that's a plus, Jeff.
Where's his URL? Where is it that we're looking at?
Up here in the top.
Okay.
Sorry. No, you're good. No apologies. Your URL is the place that you type in to get to this web page. So if I type in linkedin.com, then I end up on the LinkedIn homepage. So LinkedIn, the feed, it, obviously logs me in and gets me to where I need to be going.
Where would you go to change that?
So if I'm on my profile, edit public profile and URL. And so you can see what this looks like. I would imagine that it's in my settings.
Oh, okay.
I mean, frankly, do you know what I do when I don't know anything? Change URL on LinkedIn profile. I mean, this is literally how I find all of, if any of you have ever texted or emailed me a question that I don't know the answer to, this is what I do. Edit public profile and URL. View profile, edit public profile. So it's not even in the settings.
Yeah, because I'm in my LinkedIn account now on my phone while we're going through this. So I was trying to keep up. I don't see.
It's there. It's there, Trish. It's Greg. It's there.
I just updated mine.
You just go, you see a little pencil, blue pencil underneath it, and you click on that.
Yeah.
Where in the about?
Under what Tricia says, edit your settings.
It might not be on your phone though.
Right, that's
Might have
why
to-
I'm following along on my phone. So I think it's in a different place.
So if you're on your profile, I just clicked on edit profile and URL up here to the top right.
Mhm.
And then it says edit custom URL. And I just clicked the little pen and updated it to the most awesome Trisha Frederick, which I really hope I remember to backdate when this webinar is over.
Oh, so you can change it to whatever you want it to be.
Yeah.
Once you do that, you need to close out LinkedIn and reopen, and you'll see the URL actually change
Mm-hmm.
in your browser.
I'm going to go back.
And the purpose of doing that is what?
It's cleaner, and it gives you, if you ever need to post, like a lot of people include their LinkedIn URL on their resume, and so then it looks a lot cleaner.
Okay.
Going back to another thing that's on your profile. So you can see that I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the part that I was talking about with 500 connections. If I look at my profile let's pull up Wendy. You're going to be my next person that I'm going to look.
Oh, no.
You're fine. So, so here I have Wendy has contact information. So this is another great way if you're using LinkedIn to build business or to network within the community. If someone finds you on LinkedIn and they want to reach out to you, what do they click? And Wendy's great. She's got her email right here. She's got a URL that looks like it needs to be updated. It looks a little cleaner, but here you can reach out to Wendy at her email. So that's great. Some people have Gmail accounts here. Some people have old emails here. You don't necessarily, you want to have somewhere that people can actually get a hold of you if you're trying to build business. You don't want to hear from anyone on LinkedIn, which doesn't seem like, I wouldn't imagine that that's the case for anyone, but then you would want to remove this. But you can put your phone numbers in there. You can also put websites in there, and you can really make this a place where if people are interested in learning more about you, they can post it there. This email specifically is different than the emails that are in your profile. So I have, over the last 6 years, I've had 5 or 6 different email accounts. And so all of those are in my LinkedIn profile. If people want to, find me, they remember from, when I was in business school. And so they have that email and they want to find me. So they type in, Tricia.Frederick@vanderbilt.edu. And if that were my email, then they would be able to find me. And so this is just the one that shows up public. I'll go back to my profile. The About section is also a place where you can put in a lot of information. And this was somewhere where someone had told me actually a few weeks ago some great advice in this section, and I need to update it. But it's more like, tell me about yourself, and it can be a little more conversational than I had previously thought. And so, I talk about, what I do at the L&W team. In my third paragraph, I am a little more informal. She loves spreadsheets and is obsessed with efficiency everywhere but in the kitchen. For those of you who, like Peter, who have been to my house, I love to feast in the kitchen. And so that was something that I wanted to add. I think, part of what, LinkedIn is a professional network, and it's important that we recognize it as such, but it's also relevant that we are all humans and we do work with people who we like. And so why should your professional profile be solely about what you've accomplished and what you've done and what you can do for them? That makes it very transactional. And so you can change this section to really make it so that people, read it and think, I really like Adam. I really want to buy tires from Bridgestone because I like Adam. That's a lot of the reason that people do business. And so we can update these About sections to really reflect some of that humanity. I've also put in specialties and industries for keywords so that when people are searching for people who are the network and algorithm, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, it finds people that it thinks you may know. Right here on the right, it looks like I should know a lot of bus people. And that makes sense because I have sightseeing and transportation and motor coach in my profile. I'm connected to a number of other people. Let's see how many people I share with Matt Hodge. He's not on LinkedIn very much. I assume he's probably never going to see this if I connect with him. But he and I share 39 mutual connections. And if I click on that, I can see who they are. So these are everyone who I am connected with, as well as Matt is connected with. And there's a number of familiar names on them. And so the algorithm understands and knows who you are connected to and what sort of things you're interested in to make suggestions. And generally, their suggestions are very good. There's also pieces that are a little more advanced. Featured is one of them. If you have some, photos that you're really proud of, or websites, or, I should probably add my company. Sandy, if I were you, I might add some pictures of some really cool bus wraps that you've done. You can add those in here. And then down here, far at the bottom, I'll get back to that. But here you have your experience. And this is how LinkedIn knows that I'm an employee at the L&W team, is because I tell them that I'm working currently at the L&W team, and you can see my previous experience. I also served on the board of the Puget Sound Attractions Council for 5 years. They don't have technically a company name, but it was important for showing my involvement in the community. And then further down, you can see that I went to Vanderbilt to get my MBA, and I got my undergrad at the University of Washington. These are important to include, not only because, in my case, I paid a lot of money to go to Vanderbilt and like to put that credential stamp on my resume, but also because it connects you to those work. And so, it will suggest people who I might know from school or what might be of interest to me. Down here at the bottom, you have skills and endorsements, as well as recommendations. And these are things that other people have said I'm good at. I can rank these if I want to, but I can't control the number that people have put in here. So a number of people who said I am good at marketing, a number of people who said I am good at social media and budgets. I have not done a lot with this, to be honest. I probably should. But, that is a place that as you spend more time on here and as, it becomes more important for you to be known for something that can be helpful. And frankly, I like to ask people like, hey, these are my like 3 things that I want to be known for. Can you click here and like that? Organically, these things don't happen on their own. We as an industry and as a network, I guess not as an industry, but as a network of people who care about other people and how successful we are in our careers, we can do each other a lot of favors by saying, I'm going to go on here and I'm going to say, Wendy is great at X, Y, and Z things to bump that up. If we all paid it forward that way, our LinkedIn profiles would be significantly more valuable to us, which means they would feed the algorithm monster, which would be great. Recommendations are exactly how they sound. Someone writes you a recommendation for the work that you've done, and you can ask specifically for a recommendation through LinkedIn, or you can, ask people in the industry to write one for you. And so I had asked Jack and Adam actually to write me a recommendation, and they both did, and it was awesome. And so for them to show up, I left this here, Adam, so that I could show this, is that your recommendations won't show up on your profile until you've approved them. And so it's important that you know that there's a little bit more control on LinkedIn than there are on some other review sites that allow you to control that. I went through that fairly quickly because I want to make sure we get into some other things, but does anyone have any questions about the profile section?
I have one, and I don't know if this is, I'm kind of torn because I guess because I'm not sure about where we're going to end up in the motor coach industry. So I don't want to totally give up my other profile as far as what my other career is. How do you mingle those, or do you just create a whole new one? Because I co-mingled them a little bit.
Yeah, I would say this is that your LinkedIn profile should evolve with you as you evolve as a person. So, okay. I wouldn't start another profile, frankly, because you're going to have to reconnect with these 250 people again. And you never know who will be valuable. I'm sure, people from your previous career have been valuable to you in the motor coach industry. Mm-hmm. If you don't know where you're going to end up after the motor coach industry, I'm sure that, your friends in the motor coach industry will continue to support you as you move forward.
Okay.
And so, you can have, your about section may, start with, I own a badass motor coach company in Georgia and we do a ton of community work. I transitioned here after previously spending a lot of time as, in the regulatory agency somewhere trying to read and not being very good at concisely putting my thoughts together. But it looks like you have some really interesting experience. I have a chemistry degree from my undergrad, so you and I can nerd out about that the next time we're able to sit together and drink a glass of wine. But that about section really can talk about the roller coaster of life and career we're all on.
Okay.
Wendy, one of the things that you may want to do is you may want to take this Georgia Coach Lines profile and actually create it as a company. And you should be able to claim that and add a logo to it. And that would make it look. I think we already have a Georgia Coach Lines LinkedIn account. I think Clarence created the Georgia Coach Line one. Sure. Then when you make this, you may want to edit this role. And you should be able to, in the company, if you do have the profile created, when you type in Georgia Coach Lines, there's probably this one without a picture, and then there's probably the one that Clarence has created that does have the picture. Click on the one that does have the picture.
Okay.
So back to the presentation. There's a lot in here, but it's important to recognize that LinkedIn is your online resume, and asking yourself, is it reflective of really who you are? And, Wendy, I think that probably answers some of that question is, you are a person who's been through a number of different things in your life. And just because you've changed now doesn't mean you're a whole different person. It just means you have, a collection of experiences.
Okay.
Review your settings. This is the boring part of LinkedIn, and I'm not going to get into it. LinkedIn has a lot of settings around privacy, notifications, how people connect with you, what people can see on your settings, and all of those are personal choices. I do recommend that you are more open than you might be on some other sites, because none of this information should be private to you. When I think about your career and what you're thinking about and being more successful and, being successful in your job or getting a new job or whatever that is, all of the information that you're sharing on LinkedIn, in my mind, probably should be part of the general public. So that's my recommendation, but everyone has their own personal preferences.
Hey, Tricia.
Yeah.
I get a lot of requests from, this is Jeff speaking. I get a lot of requests from like the Middle East and Nebraska. And, the Middle East stuff, I try to go through because, I think they're just trying to feed off of what I have and cherry pick connections and stuff. So I kind of try to, delete them as I get them, but I didn't really see where you can filter out those, 13,000 mile away countries.
Sure. I don't think that it depends on if you accept requests from anywhere. You can accept requests, like you may want to say, I only accept requests from second level connections. I have my profile very open. Anyone can connect with me. And I don't get a ton of people that, request me that don't really do it, that don't really that really shouldn't be there. I accept everyone to connect with me. And then if you are posting things that I don't need to see or that aren't relevant, or if you immediately spam me afterwards and tell me that I have a great profile picture or want to sell me something, then I unfollow them immediately. And so that's part of the reason why, I have a lot of connections. I don't think as many as you, Jeff, though. I think I was stalking you on LinkedIn the other day and I was like, wow, that's impressive. Let me just pull this up and see if that's right. Do you know how many connections you have, Jeff?
It says 500 plus. Off the top, I don't know.
Yeah, so let's, yeah, you have 2,500 followers. So that's impressive.
Adam, stop stalking me, Adam.
You guys can see you're going to get a lot of people who are looking at your profile over the next few days, I'm sure. Adam and I share a lot of connections, and it looks like he has, where's the number? Here, let me pull this over here. So I'm on Adam's profile. I can see that he has 500 connections. And here I can see that he has 1,142 followers. And so that's where you can see how well connected people are. So if I pull up Jeff, does anyone know that they have a lot? Does anyone want to win how many most connections that we have? Jeff has 2,468. No one will admit to it. I'll look it up and find out who is the winner and send that out to us. Maybe it'll be a fun buses and beer thing next week.
Trish, this is Mitch. I'm not the winner, so don't worry about me. But I get a lot of requests from people I don't even know. I don't know who they are. And in the past, I've chosen not to add them in there. Is that a mistake?
So it's not the way that I run my profile. Like I said, I accept everyone. Where's my screen on? I don't know where in here. I put it in here somewhere, but I really feel like I will never know who might be the next opportunity for me to be friends with, earn business from, or help. So like I said, I connect with everyone. And that wasn't the way it was at first when LinkedIn first came out and I, of course, joined. I was very careful. I only wanted to connect with people that if someone asked me, I would be able to call them and say, hey, I have someone who really wants to meet you. Are you open to that conversation? Because I do what's called double acceptance introductions. So if I know someone that wants an introduction, I check with them and make sure that it's an appropriate introduction for both parties before I do it. And so I wanted, if someone went to my LinkedIn profile and saw that I was friends with Sandy Marquis, because I was a first connection to her, I wanted to be able to say, like, yeah, I could totally call Sandy. I know her. It's great. But now I don't have that same ability. There are lots of people that I'm connected with that I met, one time at a cocktail party, or I know of them in the industry, or we went to the same school, but maybe not at the same time. Or frankly, they live all over the world and they're doing interesting things in technology that I care about. That is why I have almost 3,000 connections. But there's, that has pros and cons, obviously. I do get asked, not very often, but sometimes for an introduction to people, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't really know them. So pros and cons, depending on what you want to do. It does mean that your feed will be full of other people's stuff that they're posting. And that could be good or bad. Does that make sense, or Mitch?
Yep, thank you.
I have a question.
Jeff is the one that told me to be choosy, so he won't admit it, but.
What about people that you'd like to get off your LinkedIn? Are you stuck with them?
No, not at all. Jeff.
Unfollow.
Yep, you can click more. You can either unfollow, which means
unfollowed Mitch.
Oh no, banned. You can either unfollow, which means their information won't come up in their feed. And this is great for people who you are close colleagues with or good friends with that you want to stay connected to them, but they post a lot or they comment. I mean, I'm 100% certain that I have been unfollowed a lot because I'm very active on LinkedIn. If I was really mad and I wanted to actually not be connected with them anymore, I could click remove connection. And then, of course, there is that special place in social media world for reporting and blocking people.
Now, if you're going to remove a connection, you're also losing the people that they're connected to, correct?
Yes. So those would no longer be second connections. They would be third connections unless you were connected to them some other way.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Who are you kicking out of your life, Sandy?
People like all idiots.
So the activity is really, one of the pieces that makes LinkedIn more like a social media site and less like a Rolodex. On the activity side, I wrote no kids, puppies, or food. More as a joke, but there are some exceptions. You're going to see a lot fewer posts that are not about, major timelines for kids, puppies, or food on LinkedIn than you are on a place like Facebook. Generally, I see a lot of op-eds and news, and this is mostly how I use LinkedIn. So I find interesting articles and I like to pretend that I'm a thought leader. And so I share the article and my thoughts. And I did this morning, mostly as an example, but a ticketing platform called Ventrata came out with an interesting article about APIs and how if in the tours and activities segment, if technology was able to play on the same API, then we would be able to connect significantly, more easily with all of the platforms, and it would be beneficial for everyone. In the motor coach industry, we have data that is siloed. And at the LNW team, we use a platform called Zapier to connect them, but not every platform is on Zapier. And so I tagged Eric, Kyle, and Mike because I would love to see their technology platforms on Zapier so that we could be more connected. Because I think when you connect the dots, that works out a lot better. And so this post, and I'll show it to you on LinkedIn. In the feed, it doesn't necessarily look like this. Where's my feed? So if I want to find something that I posted or that someone else posted, I can go to their profile. And I said I was going to talk about activity. So here is a little section on activity. And if I click on it, it comes to here. And I can see all my activity, articles I've posted, of which I've posted none. So I don't post articles and I don't post documents. I do post. Does anyone know the difference between posts and all activity?
No.
So all activity includes likes and comments. Posts are things I have actually posted. And so you can see that on the slide, I have the post and it has see more. Here in the feed, the only thing that you see is spoiler alert, can't be good at everything. Also development is. Now that's meant as a teaser so that people will actually open it. That's very different than if I had started the post with this section, which probably would not have been nearly as engaged as spoiler alert. So there is a piece of this that is marketing and content that you want. When you want people to be reading your things, you need to think about what people are actually wanting to read. And so I use, like I said, I use the platform significantly for op-ed, in my opinion. You can tag people the same way that you can tag on Facebook. And so here I've tagged Zapier, which is a company. I've tagged 3 people that I'm connected to. And then I've tagged a couple other people in the end. I've also included hashtags. What I think is interesting on LinkedIn is that you can actually follow hashtags. So if you're interested in something, you can actually follow things and anything tagged. And I actually wrote an op-ed just like this about probably a year and a half ago. And it ended up getting featured on LinkedIn editorial something, and it got 50,000 views in a week or two. And it was wild. But it was mostly because I helped. You also see that I have put emojis into this. And I think most people would think, oh, LinkedIn, not a place for emojis. But it is. You want to include, emojis make things more interesting. Photos make things more interesting. And all those pieces still, apply, even though it is a, quote, professional network. I do not use emojis on all my posts. But one of my friends, I wonder if he's doing it. Oh my gosh, what is it? This is the other reason I like LinkedIn. I couldn't remember his last name, and I typed in Adam, and it came up. So his activity, he has a customer success company, and he posts a lot about customer success, and he had gotten some advice that emojis were really valuable, and he was using them significantly. It looks like he's tuned them down. He has a lot of these webinars. It doesn't look like he's using them nearly as much, but you can see, a short little emoji can create what is a lot of text into something that's a little more engaging. So I talked about the, I want more, being able to click to see through. You think about that the same way in, newspapers or emails, and getting people to read more of your content is interesting. You want to be interesting and engaging above the fold. And then the other thing that you see here is that I use space. So short sentence space, short sentence space. I think we learned this in our advocacy effort. When people are scrolling, they're not going to read or engage in a big paragraph of text. So think about using your space in a way that makes sense. And because LinkedIn is going to shorten it to just those top 3 lines, 4 lines maybe, you're not putting these big, long, blocks into someone's feed and have to. So it's important that you know that LinkedIn now has evolved as a social media. And so there's a very wide range of appropriate activities. I said no kids, puppies, or food. There are exceptions to that. What you really need to do is to choose your brand. What are you going to be doing? Are you, like my friend Adam, just posting about his webinars? Are you like a lot of opinions and thought leadership? Start posting kids, puppies, and food, you're probably going to get unfollowed, or someone will casually tell you this isn't the place for it. But some people are all about hard selling on LinkedIn. Some people are about health and wellness. Choose your brand and choose, what you feel is appropriate. But there is a much wider range of that now than there. The algorithm. And I think the headline here is you must play the game. And it's important that you understand how the algorithm works so that you understand how to win. When you like or comment on something, it is shown to your network. And so here I'm connected to Alex Kramer. He's a first connection of mine. I am not connected to Bobby O'Campbell. He's a second connection because I'm connected to Alex. Alex liked the post, and therefore it got shown to me in my. I think that makes sense. The opposite part that we don't always think about is that when you comment, then your first connection will see that. So, I've done this on a number of people's posts in the industry, and they're looking for jobs. You can comment, you can like the post, and you can comment something like, "They'd be lucky to have you." What that means is that that post from that person shows up to my entire network. Obviously, it feeds through the algorithm, but for things that you want to be, boosted or given some higher credence, you can like and comment on them, and they'll expand through your. So you're getting information from people that like to comment on posts they're interested in, but you're also sending it out to you. And this is where the unfollow button comes into play. You have someone who's very actively engaging in things you don't really care about, you can unfollow them. It means if I unfollowed Alex, I would not be shown the post. Does that make sense? And I think that. The other thing is LinkedIn comments. So I know that it seems silly to feed the algorithm. You have to play the game. If you put a link into your LinkedIn post, the algorithm will not like it as much as if you just post it with a photo or just with text. It doesn't care if you put it in. So what I mean by that is that if I go to I go back to the home screen, I'm going to start a post. I'm going to say, "Hi, I hope if you missed my webinar today, please watch the recording." It would be terrible post, but I might add a photo that has one of the original slides. So you may have I post about our website that way. I can add a photo here, but what I want to do is I'd copy the URL that I want to put in here, post, and then I'd immediately comment. And so this way, LinkedIn thinks that it's a post that just has text and a photo, but the URL and the link. This will allow your post significantly more traction. The other thing that will give you more traction is by tagging people and getting them to engage. One of the things that is interesting about LinkedIn is that sometimes it's days or even weeks to gain traction. people are not on LinkedIn the same way that they're on Facebook and Instagram. So your content lives for a lot longer. Something that's a day old on Facebook is antiquated, but something that's 10 days or a week old on LinkedIn is not necessarily. I think that's probably because our industry spends less time on LinkedIn. And I think most people spend less time on LinkedIn, but it's not great if you need immediate results. It is good if you're looking for long-term thoughtfulness or starting conversations. The other thing that I expect will change in the next 12 months is advertising. Currently, LinkedIn is a great place to get a lot of return on your value if spending advertising dollars. And this may or may not apply to this group, but if you are, LinkedIn has people who you are selling to, the advertising dollars that you spend there typically will go a little further than they do on Facebook. So Facebook, there's a lot of advertisers, and it's often hard to get the traction that you need for the dollars that you want to spend. But if you're looking to target professionals, LinkedIn can be a great place for that. And I would expect that as people figure that out and more advertising dollars grow towards LinkedIn, that won't necessarily happen. So a lot of people who are way smarter than me are recommending that people are focused on LinkedIn as a new platform for advertising. It hasn't been around. The advertising hasn't been around for as long as it has on some of the other platforms. I know it is 2:00, and so that's all of the LinkedIn stuff that I have. The last thing I wanted to do is to address any questions. I think everyone probably has my cell phone and email, but if you don't, there it is. We have this opportunity here while we're in the middle of a pandemic to not return to normal, but return to better. And the people who are responsible for that are on this call. And it's important that we just start somewhere. I know almost every day I stop at something. So, everyone did that. I think the year, you'd be surprised how interesting our lives. So that's it.
Thank you, Tricia.
Thank you, Tricia.
Amazing, Tricia. Thank you.
This was awesome.
Thank you so much.
If anyone has questions, I'm happy to stick around.
Thank you, Tricia.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tricia.